Welcome back to a whole new week and a whole new topic here on the podcast, The Aha Moments. You know, I hope you all had a great weekend and a restful weekend. I had a very enjoyable weekend. I got to hang out with people that I love. I got to hang out with people that were new to me. I got to host an event in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was super exciting. And I hope you got to do things this weekend that rejuvenated you and made you feel good as well. And I hope you're really looking forward to an upcoming week, and I hope this will be the best week of your life, and something that I say on this podcast makes your life better. The topic this week is going to be seeing the goodness in others, and today I'm going to talk to you about the significant difference it can make to you to see the goodness in others. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. And, you know, we live in a world where negativity spreads like a virus and positivity is a significant challenge. Because it's hard to stay positive and to be positive and assume that everyone is doing what they're doing for good reasons and with good things in their heart. But that's actually how you need to live your life. It's very, very difficult to live your life thinking and behaving as if everyone is trying to cause harm. But that's how most of us live. You know, I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with over the years, and they've come from a difficult childhood, and in adulthood, that difficult childhood still torments them, still bothers them. It's still a part of their lives in a way that they would not be pleased with. And they hold resentment and anger towards their parent or parents. And then they come to therapy and they have anger issues, or they have insecurities, they have abandonment issues. And through the therapy, they learn to forgive their parents. They learn to acknowledge their parents were not all bad. They learn to acknowledge that their parents were doing the best that they can, or doing the best that they could. And through that process, they get to let go of the hate and the anger and the resentment. They get to let go of the things that were troubling them. They get to let go because they've learned, if I can look at my parents through a positive lens, even though they were not perfect, I can look at them as if I can just see the good in them. You know, they weren't the best parents, but they were doing the best that they could. They weren't ideal parents, but they were good at these things. I remember working with one client who told me her parents, both of them, were very verbally abusive, and she had so many insecurities as a result of that. I asked her to tell me, yes, your parents were verbally abusive, but is there anything that you're grateful for in them? And this woman, puzzled, looked at me and was really, really confused, and she said, you know, they were very good providers. I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, they always made sure that me and my siblings had food on the table. I said, how has that benefited you? And she said, I also now make sure that my children have food on the table. And I do appreciate that my family taught me how important it was to be a good provider and a strong leader of the home. She went on to tell me that her parents were also religious. It's unfortunate that religious people would conduct themselves in such kind of verbally abusive ways. But she went on to tell me that her parents were religious, and they made their faith a big part of their world, and she was also making her faith a big part of her children's worlds. And she said how much she appreciated that. She said that that meant something to her. She said that even though her parents were not great in one area, it was impacting her to think about her parents in a positive light. A couple weeks later, she came back to therapy and said, you know, I've felt better now than I've felt in a really long time because I've been able to let go of that burden. Because once you start seeing someone through a positive lens, you don't have that negative experience when you're thinking about them. When you don't have that negative experience when you're remembering them. You don't have that negative experience carrying around with you. Unfortunately, when you have bad thoughts about other people, they usually don't know or don't care. It's you who pays the price for thinking negatively of someone else. So it's you who gets the benefit when you see the goodness in others. I want you to do that not because it's good for the others. I want you to do that not because it even makes a difference in the others' lives. I want you to do that because it's good for you. I want you to do that because you deserve it, not because they deserve it. I want you to do it because you deserve to have the positive benefit of thinking positively of other people. So what I want you to do is everybody around you, you know, your loved ones, I want you to secretly make a list of all of the good things you can see in them. If they're a partner that you're mad at, if they're a child that you've had a conflicted relationship with, whatever it is, I want you to make a list of the good things about them secretly. Don't even tell them you're doing it, and watch the impact it has on your life. Thank you so much for being here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope this meant something to you. If it did, please hit that share button and share this podcast on your social media platforms, or even share it with one person in your life for whom you think this would make a difference. And if you haven't done so already, please become a subscriber. You can do that anywhere you enjoy listening to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is. You can also become a VIP listener on Patreon, and my VIP subscribers get bonus episodes and transcriptions from each and every episode. Thanks so much, guys. I love you for being here. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I'm not sure that it was the first time ever, but I remember a time early in my life that I experienced as the first time when someone saw something positive in me and it made a huge difference. Not necessarily because of who it was, but more because of when it was. More because of when it happened in my life and what I was dealing with at that time. I'm going to share with you that story and the impact of it here today on the Aha Moments. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and today I want to tell you a very personal and impactful story that happened during my sophomore year in high school. I've made no secret about it. If you've been following me at all for any amount of time, you know that my childhood had some bumps in the road. My childhood had some difficulties in it. My childhood was a bit hard, and it was really, really hard in those early high school years. I think that's when the most difficult phase of my life started, and it lasted until my early college years. So in my sophomore year of high school, those of you not from America, that's your second year of high school. I think we call it year 10. I think you would call it year 10 where you are. I had a class called marine biology. Now at the time, what no one really knew, because I didn't tell anyone, my dream was to become a marine biologist. And as a child, I used to watch every documentary about sharks and ocean life and marine life. I used to go to the library and I would read books about ocean life and marine life. I remember my paternal grandmother, she had a bar in her basement. And on the other side of that bar was a bunch of books. So I would go behind the bar and find books. And there was this one book that had sharks in it. And I would turn the pages and so I just obsessed about marine life, humpback whales. I mean, it's just anything that had to do with marine life, I would read and pay attention to. And now I'm a sophomore and I'm taking this class called marine biology. Now, the highlight of this class, now I grew up in Massachusetts, so the highlight was later on in the academic school year, we would go on a whale watch. Leading up to the whale watch, where we would watch humpback whales kind of migrate off the coast of Massachusetts, off the coast of New England, leading up to the whale watch, we would take classes about humpback whales. Now, the teacher in this class was a guy named Mr. Valancourt. And I had never had Mr. Valancourt before. This was my first time experience with him in this lead up to this whale watch field trip. And I really didn't have a good reputation at my school for being like a top academic person. I didn't really do my homework a whole lot, mostly because of my home life. People around me were concerned about me, and mostly it was all because of my home life. Like I didn't really struggle intelligently. I just had a hard time doing the things that make teachers like that think you're intelligent. So most of the teachers didn't view me as a kid with a super bright future. And then this day comes and we're studying for a humpback whale field trip. Mr. Valancourt is the teacher and he's asking a bunch of questions about humpback whales. Do you guys know why they migrate? And nobody's saying anything. And I raised my hand because I spent my whole life obsessing about the ocean because I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I would say they migrate for feeding and birthing. And he was like, yes, that's correct. And he would ask a bunch of questions. I'd raise my hand. I'd get it correct. And at the end of the first class of me encountering Mr. Valancourt, I'm packing up my bag, my books to go back to my locker. And as I'm leaving the class, Mr. Valancourt stops me and he says, "You're a very bright student." And I said, "Thank you." And he said, "You're mostly quiet. I've heard about you in this class, and now to actually participate in class, you're a very bright student. You should show people more how bright you are." And I can remember, because this came from someone that I didn't really know, because it came in a setting that I wasn't usually getting positive feedback in, I remember the significant impact it had on me because a lot of the feedback I was getting at home was you're not really valuable. You're not worthy. I was getting insults and criticism. I tell people all the time, my childhood was abusive, but the emotional and verbal abuse was far more impactful than the physical. And now here's this teacher telling me I was intelligent. And it was kind of like, why would you say that? Like all the feedback I get from other people is different. But here's this person not focusing on my flaws. This person is overcoming all the negative things they'd heard about me as a student, and they're focusing on me as a bright person because I could answer questions about marine life. It was hugely impactful. I'm 46 years old, and I still remember it. It still impacts me. It still makes a difference. Now, again, I can't recall if that's like the actual first time someone focused on what was good about me. At that time, I was probably 14. Maybe while I was 10, someone notice something. Maybe when I was 8, somebody would notice something. But that was the first time I remember hearing something positive about me from a source that surprised me, and it inspired me. Like, it made a huge difference. I killed the rest of the studying about marine life. I was so excited to go to each class knowing that Mr. Valancourt thought positive of me. And it made me also remember, like, I should try to think positive things about other people because I never know what they were going through. Mr. Valancourt didn't know that I came from a home where I was getting criticized, insulted, and verbally attacked constantly. He just said a positive thing about me because he decided to say a positive thing about me. Imagine if we could live in a world where we just thought positive things about other people and shared those positive things as often as we could. Imagine that world. Let's try to create it. And I want to ask you to pay extra close attention to how you show up in this world and pay real close attention to being positive about the people around you instead of focusing on their flaws. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I love you guys. Please, please, please hit that share button and help me reach more people by sharing this podcast on your social media platforms, or even sharing it with one person in your life for whom you think it would make a difference. And don't forget to subscribe. You can become a subscriber just by going to Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, or anywhere else you enjoy listening to podcasts. And thank you so much. I would really, really, really appreciate it. You can also become a VIP listener by going to Patreon and becoming a subscriber there. And you will get bonus episodes each and every week. And you'll get transcriptions from each and every episode. Thank you so much. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. So what happens if you don't adopt the mentality of noticing what's good around you and the goodness in people? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to share an example that's really, really personal to me, but it was the first lesson I learned to let me know how important it is to be positive and focus on good things in the people around you. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I'm going to talk to you about my father today. My father was someone as a child I looked up to tremendously. Like, even though it's weird to say that because I was experiencing really rough treatment from him. I was experiencing really challenging treatment from my father, but I looked up to him just like any son would look up to their dad. Like, I didn't realize what I was going through was so harmful or unusual. Like, you don't have that level of wisdom when you're that young, so you just look up to your father. And it started to change when I realized, like, he wasn't happy. He wasn't joyous. He wasn't living life the way I wanted to live my life. And I don't mean like he was making choices I wouldn't make and doing things I wouldn't do. I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But like, I wanted to have fun and smile and laugh and inspire and all of those things. And that's not the way, that wasn't his demeanor. He was always serious. He was always angry, and there was always a lecture. Like, I mean, I'm talking like one day I remember watching the movie The Sandlot. Me and my brothers watched the movie The Sandlot, which is a movie that came out in the 80s or early 90s, whatever it was. And it was like a baseball movie, depicted these neighborhood kids playing baseball. And when the movie ended, my dad turned off the television and said, "What was the theme of that movie?" And I mean, I'm young, I'm 12, 11, and what was the theme of that movie? And, I'm thinking, what's the right answer? What's the answer that's not going to get me in trouble, yelled at, or even hit? And it was like, I tell him, I think the movie's about friendship, and my dad got angry, and it's about this. And like, that's what it was like. It was always a lecture and serious. And one day my father said, "I don't know how to live life if I don't have something to stress and worry about. And I remember hearing that and thinking, holy moly, like that is not in any way how I want to live my life. I don't want to live my life like looking for stresses and worries. Like imagine if you live your life and when you look around you and you look at the people around you and you look at just life, you're looking for evidence to be stressed and worried. You're looking for things within people to cause you stress and worry. You're looking for things within people to just cause you concern. I think that's a major contributor to why my father's life went the way it went. I think it's a major contributor to why my father's level of happiness never really ascended. I think that's the main reason why he was the way that he was, because he was looking for reasons to be angry. He was looking for reasons to be stressed. And then when his children did something, it was like a confirmation of that reason. You know, as a child, I was a pretty mischievous kid, and I used to lie to my parents or to my dad in particular, because I wanted to stay out of trouble. But instead of being able to recognize, he's just doing kid things. Like my children are just doing things that children do. It was always like a confirmation that these children are bad and that I need to beat the bad out of them. And it never really allowed him to be happy. It never really allowed him to enjoy what was happening around him. It never really allowed him to experience the pleasure that having 3 sons could have provided to him. Because that's what happens when you don't look for the good in others. You miss opportunities for the goodness around you. You miss pleasure. You miss positivity. You miss all of those things that could really take your life to a new level and really cause you to have joy and happiness and peace. The reason why I'm such an advocate for being positive and looking for the good in others is because it actually gives you peace. There are no perfect people on the planet. So listen to me. If you look for flaws in the people around you, you're going to find them, and it's going to give you reason to stress and concern. There's no way you won't find them because no one's perfect. But if you accept people's imperfections and you look for what's good about them, you get to have peace. That's the message here. That's what I want you to learn. That's why I'm willing to share this with you, because I want you to take that lesson with you so you can have peace, joy, and happiness. You deserve it. You are worth it. I wish somebody had told my father that when he was young, so now I'm telling you. So thanks for being here. Please practice this art of focusing on the good around you. Find the people around you that matter and pay attention to what makes them so good and why you're so happy to have them in your life. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. Please hit that share button. Help me reach more people, and hit that share button and share it on your social media platforms, or even share it with one person in your life you think this would make a difference for. Share it with one person, man, because that one person could be like my dad, and if they had gotten this message at a different point in their life, maybe it'll make a difference in their life. And also, don't forget to become a subscriber. You can do that wherever you listen to podcasts. Patreon is where you can become a VIP listener and get access to bonus episodes and transcriptions of each and every episode. Love you guys so much. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. For the majority of this week, I have been talking about seeing the goodness in others and why it's so important to have a positive hue on the way that you see the world and the people around you. But today I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to talk about why it's important that you see the positive in you. I'm going to let you know why it's so important that you see the best in yourself and the difference that could make in the way that you live your life. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. I want to tell you a really quick story. When I was young, one of the biggest entertainers in the world was a guy named Bobby Brown. He was like the biggest singer ever in the world. And my best friend wanted to go to a Bobby Brown concert. So he asked his parents for Bobby Brown tickets. Kyle asked his parents for Bobby Brown tickets, and they got him the tickets. I can't remember if it was his birthday or Christmas, or they gifted it to him, whatever. But they bought him Bobby Brown tickets. And when we were at the concert, it was at the stadium in Providence, Rhode Island. We walked into the stadium and they had like these posters for an upcoming event. And Kyle looked at the poster for whatever the upcoming event was, and he said, I want to go to that. And I said, yeah, I hope somebody takes me to that. And as I heard myself say that, at the time, I was probably about 15 years old. I remember thinking, like, I don't know that I view myself as capable. Like Kyle, growing up in a really nurturing, wonderful environment with nurturing, wonderful parents, views himself as capable and said, like, I want to go to this event. But me, at the age of 15, I was like, I hope somebody takes me to that event. Like, not looking at myself through the lens of capability, like I could do the things to get me to go to this event. Like I could save my own money, I could do my own thing and end up at this event. And that was a really, really powerful moment for me, because when you grow up in a negative environment, you tend to have a negative view of yourself. You tend to think of yourself as incapable. You tend to think of yourself through a negative lens, and it limits you. Like, you can see the goodness in other people, but you can't see it in you, and that becomes limiting. It has a negative impact on your life. Most of us, regardless of how wonderful your background was or wasn't, most of us understand this dynamic because we have a tendency to compare the worst of ourselves to the best of other people via social media. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to develop the ability to look at yourself and say, I am capable, I am worthy, I am good, I am enough. You have to be able to believe in yourself in order to achieve great things. It took me a really long time to understand that. But now that I do, I'm like fascinated with the idea of it's okay to believe in yourself. I was just talking to a friend of mine today who is really at the top of her field. Like, what she does, she's at the very, very top of her field. And I was telling her, like, you should say, I am the greatest. I am so good at this. I worked at it and I honed it. And all of it is true. She is the greatest. She did work at it and hone it. It wasn't something that came easily. She had to develop these things. She had to work at these things. She had to become this thing. And she gives herself almost no credit for it. And when I encourage her to like own that truth, she says, but isn't that me bragging? And I'm like, no, you have to be able to own your truth. Think about someone like Michael Jordan, who just has the fundamental ability to believe in himself and his skills. If I enter into this contest, in Michael Jordan's case, basketball games, I will win because I just believe in myself. That's not arrogance. That's confidence. That's self-assuredness. It's the ability to see good in yourself. If you can see good in yourself, you can go further in life. It's not being humble to not see good in yourself. Being arrogant is thinking you're better than another person, which I am not advocating for. But having self-assuredness just says, I believe I'm capable. I believe I'm worthy. I believe I'm good enough. And I look for the evidences that I'm capable, worthy, and good enough. And when I find them, I allow them to make a difference in my life. That's a really important mindset to develop, regardless of whether your childhood was wonderful or not. And I want you to work to develop it. So I want you to write down a list of all of the things about yourself that you enjoy. All of the things that you see as good things about yourself, and make sure you get to at least 20. It'll be hard, but make sure you get to at least 20, and then put the list somewhere where you'll see it. Don't put it in a list in your iPhone, because then you won't really see it, but like literally print it and put it on your mirror, in your closet, next to your bed. Put it somewhere where you can see it, and then read it once a day. Thank you so much for being here. I really hope this message makes a difference for you. If it does, please hit that share button and share this podcast on your social media platforms. It would really mean the world to me. Or even just share it with one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to become a subscriber. You can do that at Apple, Simplecast, Spotify, wherever it is you enjoy listening to podcasts. And you can also become a VIP listener by heading on over to Patreon and subscribing there. You'll get bonus episodes and transcriptions of each and every episode once you become a VIP listener. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Love you guys. As you can probably tell from my focus on it this week, seeing the goodness in others is a really important aspect of living a happy, fulfilled, and well-nourished life. And there are wonderful examples of this. Like, if you look around in your real life, you'll see people that are just good at seeing the goodness in other people, and it makes their lives better. But there are also examples in pop culture, in movies, and in television where when you see this, it's just a great demonstration of how to live life. And today I'm going to talk to you about a movie where there's a scene that I think highlights this very thing. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I want to talk to you about a movie. It came out many, many years ago, and the movie's called House Guest, and it stars Sinbad, a very well-known comedian, and a now deceased comedian, a guy by the name of Phil Hartman. And Phil Hartman plays like an executive, kind of like a really high-strung, uptight executive / family man. He's got a teenage son that just really drives him absolutely nuts. And the comedy of the movie is Sinbad plays a person who's pretending to be someone that Phil Hartman knows in his past. Now that they're grown up, he doesn't recognize him as an adult. But anyway, that's what he's pretending to be, this guy that he knew as a child, and he's become his house guest. And the movie's really funny. You know, it came out 25 years ago. You can Google it. I actually don't remember, but it was a long time ago. There was a scene in the movie. The Phil Hartman character is really, really frustrated with his son, and the son just wants the dad to like him. And he's like, "Hey, Dad, come watch me shoot a basketball." And the dad doesn't have any time for him, and he's just frustrated by him. And there's a scene in the movie where the dad is like walking out the front door, and he walks in the porch, and he steps on his son's skateboard, and he slips and falls, and he gets really frustrated, like, "Dang it, I'm so upset my son, he never puts this skateboard away, blah, blah, blah." I know this might sound crazy, but, teenagers do that. Like, they leave their toys out. They leave their skateboards out. They leave things out. Like, that's what happens. And then later on in the movie, there's this huge moment where the Phil Hartman character kind of has an awakening and realizes he needs to spend more time with his family. He needs to invest more in his family. He needs to invest more in his son, and he wants to connect with people, and he's thinking more positively. He has gotten the ability to see good in people and the people around him. So later on, he walks out the front door, slips on the same skateboard, and he laughs, and he says, "Oh, Timmy," or whatever the kid's name is. I think it is Timmy, actually. "Oh, Timmy," and he laughs. And you can see, like, when you live your life in a way where small things bother you, there's always going to be small things that will inherently bother you. But when you live your life, that's just an example of your son being your son. That's just an example of a teenager doing teenager things. That's just an example of that person doing what people do. It just makes life better. You smile more. You love harder. You love more deeply. You experience life in a really, really positive way. And when I think about seeing the good in others, I always think about that movie, which is just a silly movie from the 90s. I think from the 90s, maybe early 2000s, but mid to late 90s. And it's a silly comedy movie with two kind of slapstick comedians, but it's got a scene in there that depicts what it's like to go through that transition where you go from being easily frustrated by everything to appreciating everything. And think about this, like, I can remember, so this is the one criticism I'm going to have for my mother. I love my mother. She's the most amazing human, and I would not be who and where I am today without her. But cooking is not my mother's greatest gift in the world. And my mother, she didn't believe in like seasoning food all the time. She would say food should be cooked in its natural juices, which my mother would say that. And I can remember going off to college and eating like cafeteria food for an entire, months and months and months. And the first time I went home, which was for Thanksgiving, like I couldn't wait to eat my mom's food that as a child I complained about all the time. But now I'm a college freshman and I'm going home for Thanksgiving, and I can't wait to have my mother's food. That's because when you see the good in things, you just appreciate everything. And I've said this before in this podcast, I don't know anybody who has high levels of appreciation, like that's their mentality and the way they approach life, who isn't also happy. So if you want to be happy, you have to increase your appreciation game. And part of that is learning the art of seeing the good in other people. So here, I want to ask you to do something today. Go, like, as you watch television, watch movies, look for examples of people that see the good in other people and watch the impact it has on their life in television, in movies, wherever. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Thank you so much for listening through this week. This is an important topic, and I hope it made a difference for you. Please become a subscriber and hit that subscribe button, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is. You can also become a VIP listener by subscribing on Patreon, and you'll get access to bonus episodes, and you'll also get access to transcriptions from each and every episode. Also, please hit that share button. Help me reach more people by hitting that share button and sharing it on social media platforms, or even sharing it with one person in your life that you think this would make a difference for them. Thanks so much. Love you guys. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. See you Monday.